We won the war. Help me go home.
Christopher Nolan's quest to bring the Odyssey to life is now in theaters. The movie has a star-studded cast with Matt Damon, Tom Holland, and Anne Hathaway, just to name a few. It's the first film as well shot entirely on 65mm IMAX cameras. And fans eager for the high-resolution viewing experience began buying their tickets last year. So how are people reacting to the film's release? To answer that, I want to bring in Jason Gorber. He's a film critic and a film correspondent for CBC's Metro Morning. So thanks so much for joining us. Also editor-in-chief, I should mention, at That Shelf, a pop culture outlet. So Jason, thanks for joining us to chat. I understand you've just come back from your second viewing of the film. So after nearly 6 hours of watch time, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, yeah, so when they first screened it here in Toronto, we saw it on sort of a regular 70mm, and then I got to see it finally on IMAX film, one of the, I guess, half dozen theaters around the country that's actually showing it this way, the sort of Christopher Nolan preferred way. And I think the film's actually quite extraordinary. I actually went in reasonably trepidatious about how he was going to pull this all off. But I really think that the film, in a fundamental way, speaks to something that Nolan has obviously been working at his entire career. I've been saying to a lot of people, like, how this sort of fits in. It's as if that the Odyssey shows that the DNA of this ancient narrative has existed in almost every project. You can see now, but having seen the Odyssey, moments of it in Dark Knight, moments of it in Memento, in Inception, even in the Oscar-winning Oppenheimer. And so not only does it work on its own, but it also works as a real fascinating showcase into a specific artist and his proclivities, his interests in shifting time, in heroic journeys, and all of these elements we actually see brought to the fore in this incredible epic.
I'm curious what you might have missed in the first watch that perhaps stood out in the second time around.
Well, I mean, it seems completely ridiculous, but yeah, and not to get too mathy. Okay, so in IMAX, I'll do show and tell. This is a 70mm film, and normal 70mm roll, 65 is shot and 70 is shot. Normally it goes through this way. What IMAX does is it goes through sideways, and these giant negatives are 60% more image. So when I first saw it in 70 at a 2:2:1 for those nerds out there, this sort of thin strip, which is what we're sort of used to, that widescreen aesthetic, by opening it up, normally it's a gimmick. We see a lot of movies, especially from Nolan, where he goes big and then he goes small, this sort of shifting aspect ratio. With this film shot entirely in the wide aspect ratio, it's so clear that it was framed that way as the absolute definitive one. It's a shame because not many audiences will get to see it in the proper way, in the expanded way. But seeing it that way, I felt more emotionality for certain scenes. The sense of loss, the sense of these characters in these spaces they couldn't quite control. And that's what I got about seeing it the second time. Not only is the film, you know, enjoyable. It's not the first film I've seen multiple times in a week, that's for sure. But this one really felt that me stepping up to IMAX just felt like a new way into this story. And I can only say, for those that are very interested in seeing this film, find a way to see it in that sort of square, that 1:4:3 aspect ratio. If you have a chance, this is the way to see it, because I have a feeling at home and any other way, this film will only exist for those of us that got to see it theatrically this way.
The one theater in BC that's playing it that way is about 5 minutes from my house. So I think you've just sold me to have to check it out personally. But the Odyssey is a
Get seats in the middle and sort of halfway from the top. There's my professional recommendation.
Okay, good advice. I will take you up on that. The Odyssey is a 3,000-year-old story. How do you think the film was able to capture its original essence?
So it's two separate things at play here. One is an ancient story, which means almost every story that's come afterwards owes a debt to Homer and these type of epics, and this sort of hero's journey, to use the Campbell thing that film critics like me like to throw out. But also, this is a very contemporary film in the sense that what Christopher Nolan has done, I think, exceptionally well, is stripped out much of, let's call it, supernatural elements, the gods playing with other gods stuff that is in the original epic poem, and focus very much on a human story, yes, there are mythical beasts and there's all kinds of grand adventures, and there's certainly gods playing with our characters that engage with, like, Greek tragic elements like hubris and all that stuff that you learn back in English class. But the fact of the matter is that what Nolan has done, and this particular translation, this transmogrification of the original story, is to make it very contemporary, to make it a specific set of characters that you understand that what he's reflecting upon is the PTSD of war, the reflection upon that sometimes you have to cheat to win, and that the cheating itself leaves a stain on your own soul. So in some ways it owes as much to the films of the 70s that reflected on, especially American films of the 70s, that reflected upon a sort of Vietnam War aesthetic, rethinking of what it meant to be a hero, etc., very much in a contemporary setting, but also echoing back to these massive stories that have literally been sung for thousands of years.
All right, we don't have time for another question, but real quick, yes or no, was this Nolan's best film yet?
I don't think it's best film, but I think it is every film. I think that this is the key, the touchstone to understand Nolan. I think he's probably made better films, but he's never made a film so personal and so much a way of unlocking what it is to appreciate by his other projects. I think every film of his is definitely worth showcasing. They're not all masterpieces, but all of them have something to teach us and something to be impressed by.
Jason, thank you so much for this.
All the best. Take care.